Page Pate is a criminal defense and constitutional law attorney. Mr. Pate, thanks so much for being here. Just help us understand why there would only be one black juror when, if I pull up the demographics of the city where this happened, Brunswick, it is, according to the latest U.S. Census, 55% black, 40% white, Hispanic 8.5%, Asian 2%. You're allowed to identify yourself as more than one thing, which is why that adds up to more than 100. But the point is, it's more than 50% black. So why only one black juror?
Well, Allison, that's a great question. Let's start with the fact, though, that the jury is being pulled not just from the city of Brunswick, but from the entire Glenn County area. So you're watering down that percentage to probably about 30%. But that's still much, much higher than what we ended up with on this jury. And even the amount of people, the amount of African-American potential jurors that made it through the lengthy 2.5-week selection process to get to the end, even most of those, almost all of them were struck by the defense. So it's certainly a very unrepresentative jury if you're looking at the demographic makeup of this county.
Yeah, and it's interesting because one of the attorneys for one of these accused, this is Mr. Goff, who represents Roddy Bryan, earlier in jury selection, said that there weren't enough, as he described them, Bubba's and Joe Six-Packs, speaking of white men over 40, born in the South, without a college education. So they know the value of the racial makeup of the jury. But I wonder if you are making this case to this jury of 11 whites, 1 black member. Does that influence the case you make and how you make it if you believe race was in play in this killing?
Victor, I don't think there's any doubt that race was at play here in some form or fashion. And that has been on the minds not just of the lawyers, not just of the people in this community, but obviously of the potential jurors. As we went through the jury selection process, everyone was being asked questions. What do you think about the case? Was race a factor? What are your views on race relations? So it's been a part of this case. And I think it is critically important to talk about how difficult it was if you were an African-American juror to get from stage one a couple of weeks ago until yesterday. Very difficult, because they were questioned with a lot more scrutiny given the relationships and the social media and what views they may have about the case. So, I can understand the criticism about the process.
So why did the judge let that happen?
Excellent question. Under Georgia law, basically it's a two-part process. The state or whoever's challenging the strike has to show that there's at least some basis to believe that the strike was based on race. It was discriminatory. And so when the judge came out after hearing the evidence, he said, yeah, I think the prosecution has made out an initial case, but the defense have come up with other reasons. And that is so easy to do under Georgia law. I mean, if you can't come up with a race-neutral reason for a jury strike, you shouldn't be practicing law. And so the judge is not going to drill down, really question them. He's simply going to accept what they've said. And under Georgia law, that's enough.
Is there, if the prosecutor here believes that the racial makeup of the jury played a role in an acquittal, if that's what happens, is there anything the state can do, or does double jeopardy take all that off the table?
Yeah, there's not a single thing the state can do. If they're found not guilty, they're not guilty. State has no right to appeal at this point. What I think could happen if there's a mistrial and there's an attempt to retry the case, this issue could be argued. But look, there's a record. And again, an appellate court is certainly not going to look into the legitimacy of the reasons the defense lawyers are given for the strike any more than the trial judge would. So it's a done deal. This is the jury that's going to hear the case.
Page Pate, thanks for helping us understand it.
Thank you, Victor.